Hello and welcome to Conversations with Barbara. I'm Barbara Kanellopoulos, and my guest today is Alice Kociemba. Alice is Falmouth's resident poet, and she's here to talk about the Falmouth Cultural Council. And welcome to the program, Alice.
Thank you, Barbara.
We also want to say that you're one of the editors of this book of poetry, a collected works of poetry, edited by Alice and Robin Smith Johnson and Rich Humans. And here we are. Congratulations on editing this wonderful book of poetry.
Yes. Well, as everybody knows, Cape Cod is an iconic region, and we put out a national call for poems that really celebrate what's special about this place. And we got over 1,000 submissions.
Really?
From all over, from Hawaii, from every part of the country.
Oh, how exciting. I know it says, "From the farther shore, discovering Cape Cod and the islands through poetry." That's lovely.
Yes, and the book starts with a poem by Stanley Kunitz, former poet laureate, Route 6, and it ends with a poem by Mary Oliver called Coming Home. And in the middle there are poets that people would know locally as well as nationally regarded poets. So It was a pleasure to put together, and really we made a special effort to make sure the libraries had it, because we really thought that 50, 100 years from now, people are going to wonder what the Cape was like. And it's, of course, evolving and changing.
Yes.
Some of it under stress of both the climate change and also economic development. So we wanted to capture what it is now, and I think we did.
Yes, yes. Oh, and you're also here for another purpose. There is an Article 10, a town meeting is coming right up in November. And Alice, tell us what Article 10 is all about.
Well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. And I really want to appeal to not just the town meeting members, but all the citizens and residents of Falmouth to really support Article 10, which would have town funds match the Mass Cultural Council allocation. So it would deepen the pool of resources to fund our cultural and arts programming for Falmouth. And just to say a little bit, I don't want to talk too much about numbers. Sometimes it's better to break it up and give an example.
Right.
But the mission of the local cultural council programs, and in Massachusetts, every community has a local cultural council, and Falmouth is fortunate enough to have 8 active members, all appointed by the select board, and we meet monthly. It's an open meeting, the 3rd Tuesday at 7 at Town Hall. And we have the charge to create a diverse pool of grant recipients. And we received this year from the Mass Cultural Council $8,400. And I just did the math this morning, and for fiscal year 23, which we are in, we received 42 applicants, and they're asking for $36,000. So as you can tell, there's only so many ways to stretch a budget.
Yes.
All of those applications would not be funded because the council really vets them carefully, and we look to see which proposals really fit our funding criteria, and our funding criteria comes from a community survey. So we have a finger on the pulse of what the town wants in terms of programming.
Yes. That's so important to have a survey. So tell us something about the population that you are seeking to serve.
Well, what the response has been, and it's not surprising given the pandemic, is that they want to return to live events. And particularly concerts, art and craft fairs, classes, art exhibits and receptions, and really also what they really want is either library programs, I forgot the libraries, but they want essentially either low-cost or free events that really respond to the economic stress related to the pandemic.
Yes. Well, a diverse, a very diverse population, and a diversity among the projects too.
Yes, and one of the things that comes up strongly is to really reach out to serve underserved populations. For example, people with disabilities, the BIPOC or LGBTQ populations, non-native speaking citizens or residents of Falmouth, and also projects that celebrate local history. So we have a full agenda of what we're trying to do, and Article 10 would be a big step forward in deepening the pool so that we could meet the real, I won't say demand, but real need of the community to return to a vibrant, diverse cultural and artistic programs by organizations and individuals. And one of the things I thought, I said I like to talk in examples rather than the general, is in the last 3 years we had, this past year, the North Falmouth Village Association submitted a proposal called, I love this, Cape Cod Rocks, exclamation point. And it was prompted by the fact that Capabilities had moved into what had been a restaurant that had gone under in the pandemic, and it's now a workshop for Capabilities. They don't call them clients, they call them people.
Yes.
And a member of the board of the North Falmouth Village Association reached out and looked at really the history and nature component of finding the pink granite rocks that are iconic because of John Kennedy's memorial. So they, both school children and Capabilities people, they walk and they find the granite, and then together the staff there helps the clients make magnets and push pins, which are then sold for.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, lovely pink granite push pins and refrigerator magnets.
Yes,
that's sure lovely.
Yeah. And another example, I think, we look at, the parts of the population like teens. Certainly, the pandemic has been tough on, let's say, 7th grade to 12th graders, either between the home, having to be at home with virtual learning or hybrid learning. And so there was a psychologist from Sandwich who submitted a proposal for a mindfulness workshop that was done at the Falmouth Public Library. And we know that in particular teens were really had a dramatic increase in anxiety and depression. So these kind of programs, they don't cost the world. You have local practitioners who really do it for the love of the art, but they need some support to be able to keep doing what they're doing in a quality way. So we had a range of programs like Cape Cod Rocks and like mindfulness.
Yes. Once again, so the viewers will get a clear idea, you're asking the Falmouth government, town government, to fund, what is the amount?
For this year, it would be $8,400.
Yeah.
So let me just describe the picture, really. I had said that we need to deepen the pool. It's always going to be a small grants program, and it will always be carefully vetted. Every proposal has to have a public benefit. So it's not a pandemic relief that makes people whole in terms of lost income. Right. But we know that individual artists have lost, this is a statewide average, lost an average of $10,000 in the loss of gig incomes. So we do want to fund the programs appropriately. What Article 10 asks the town meeting members, and we really would like a robust, positive vote, is to say the only member who's not at the table is the town. The local community, the art market, is the local fundraising. It donates about almost 40% of the money over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Now, and that, let's pause for a moment. That's a once-a-year event, isn't it?
The art market is through the summer. It starts in June and ends after Labor Day.
That's right. The art market is close to the farmers market.
Correct. It's at the band shell.
Yes,
and it is a way that local vendors, for really a modest fee, they can sell their wares versus some places they charge a percentage of sales, and this is not done this way. Also, there's local musicians that they do fund for them to play.
And so the Falmouth Cultural Council is able to use the funds from the rental of the tables to fund the projects.
Yes. So the biggest player, of course, is Mass Cultural Council. They get their money from the state.
Yes.
And then it's supplemented by our local fundraising. The art market graciously donates money to the Cultural Council's account that is run by the town. And what we're asking for is the town to have a seat at the table, and together with the Cultural Council, really say it's time to really fund programs that really bring this community together. I don't know anything else that brings a divided community, this nation, anything together more than the arts. Oh
yes, yes, and we see that both at the arts market, with people coming together and enjoying all of the crafts and art there, and also there are other events that the council puts on.
The council doesn't put on those events. We decide who would get grant money, and I'll give you another example. For example, it's a shout out to Arts Falmouth. They do Arts Alive.
Yes, yes.
So this year in June, they also included a Juneteenth celebration for the town, which was wonderful. But my husband and I were going, and there was not a parking space to be found. It was a beautiful June day, and you could feel the excitement in the air. And it was one of those days that you thought, this whole town is alive with arts. It is truly arts alive.
I attended that, and I felt that electricity in there. It was lovely, wonderful. All people gathering together, enjoying themselves. It was a beautiful day. And then the jazz stroll.
The jazz stroll was recently, and it was again very popular. One of the events was at the Museum on the Green, outside, and you know, when you have a main street, like we're so fortunate to have our main street, and businesses open their shops to musicians, I think it's wonderful, wonderful. And what we're really hoping with Article 10 is that we really help everybody understand that the arts is its own infrastructure. It's a bridge that draws every part of town together, not just on Main Street, but the Cape Cod, Cape Verdean Museum and Cultural Center that was at the, it's in East Falmouth. They're doing a documentary, an oral history documentary. So really these grants, which are modest, we had a cap of, we self-imposed of $750 so that we could take a little bit from here and a little bit from there to fund more grants. But I think it would be wise now to raise the cap to $1,000 and to raise the minimum from $150 to $250. It's still, it's not impossible with town help, if we got Article 10 passed, to really fund the best proposals in the most appropriate way.
materials have become more expensive, it allows the artist to do the best that he or she can with the materials that they're using. And also you can probably fund more projects than you're doing right now.
Yes. And, you know, again, I won't do too much on the statistics, but even we had 34 proposals last year. We were able to fund 20. Of those 20, you know, 8 out of the 20 were only partially funded. People are asking for $750 and you can only give them $400 because you're trying to save this amount in order to fund another. Because, you know, the pool is not deep enough for what the need really is. And these are incredibly creative programs and practitioners.
Now the Massachusetts Council has funded this arts councils, cultural councils, all over the state, other towns. How do other towns manage? Are there some examples that we might follow?
Well, it's a really wonderful question. First of all, why I thought of this idea was that there are 4 towns that have matching funds. 2 on the Cape, Provincetown and Brewster, and 2 off Cape, which is Carlisle and the city of Worcester. So it's not unheard of to do this. And the other thing really is some councils join together to be regional. For example, the Mid-Cape Cultural Council is Barnstable plus Yarmouth. And together they pulled together and they have 21,000. The island of Martha's Vineyard is one cultural council and they have $30,000. But Falmouth has its own rich resource with the scientific community, and interpretive sciences and humanities and the arts are all part of what we fund. And I would say if we could go from 8,400 to basically 17,000, you know, if we could double it, can you imagine what we could do?
Yes. Yeah, it would be extraordinary, and it would seem to me that the other towns have seen the need and have come forward with that those resources.
Yes, in 2 towns, recently the Mass Cultural Council drew all the Cape local cultural councils together for a meetup in Hyannis, and some of the towns, like Harwich, has a director of cultural affairs. They have a paid position.
Really?
And we'd love to be able to become a funded cultural district, you know, that would really pull in not just tourist dollars, but really create a sense of the history of this place and the culture of this place is worth promoting and preserving.
Tell our viewers something about perhaps 1 or 2 projects that have been put on in the past that were successful, and that they're all successful because we know that that they're vetted. You study carefully and make sure that they're going to be appropriate. So so we can see some of the variety of projects.
Okay, that's again something that I have right here. One is an example. The Woods Hole Community Theater proposed a project to have high school internship program for students in high school who wanted to learn theater arts.
Really?
And they asked for, and it was a very well designed and thoughtful budget. They asked for $1,020. And we decided to only fund $750. So you can imagine if you had to cut your own budget by 25%, it's like, I feel like we're nickel and diming people rather than really encouraging them to be more creative.
in that case, it would seem to me that they had to work with fewer students, where they could have had more.
They could have had more, and they could have had less worry of how to make it work. These organizations, as well as individuals, have lost, I mean, with the closed venues, they've lost a lot in the pandemic, and it's time to really help them in a thoughtful and generous way. And that's just one of the, there were several music events over the individual practitioners who really reached out to, let's say, seniors with dementia. And we know that music is one of those things that is sort of the last to go in memory. And so sometimes it wasn't like a big audience event. It was a very simple program that was aimed at a vulnerable population.
Yes, yes, yeah. Really very necessary, really very worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. And there are others that are not glamorous, but I did bring my list for the last 3 years. Like the Falmouth Arts Center asked for money because you can get some organizational help. Falmouth Arts Center needed pedestals to put, you know, some of their ceramic art on exhibit. And that was, it's sort of like nuts and bolts programming. And another project was the Woods Hole Museum, Historical Museum, needed a website upgrade. So you can imagine if you could get $500 or $400 and you could actually do it rather than, you know, cobble it together.
That's right. So that money for those organizations makes a huge difference. It makes them more effective.
Yes.
That is really interesting. And I understand that there's an application that people will fill out if they're requesting funding. How does that work? Is it online?
It is online. The funding cycle just closed last Thursday. And now we're in the process of starting the review. We have 2 meetings, one where we just look at the pool, and the second one we decide who is not going to get funded, and then the amount of for the people who will. But it's the Mass Cultural Council has a, if you go to the Mass Cultural Council website, they also have other grant programs. A recovery, pandemic recovery program for individual artists is still open, for example. So it's a wealth of information. Never mind they have artist residencies, but our local cultural council funding cycle closed last Thursday.
But someone with a project of mine can go straight to the Mass Council to see if there's funding. Yes,
I think that some of the local cultural council programs that are not going to be open until next year. But there are other opportunities.
I see. And how many members are there?
Currently, there are 8 members. We also would really like to get what we call an emerging artist, a high school junior or senior. Oh. It might take till next year. We made the request in May, but we haven't heard. But we'd love to have young people.
Youth, young people, yes, of course.
And it's also a different aesthetic. I mean, what we might consider art, they might consider old-fashioned.
Of course.
And if you certainly look at performance poetry, which I'm very interested in, it's a combination of sort of music and rap and storytelling, so it would be good.
It's pretty exciting.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And we really just are in need of town meeting members to consider this, to reach out to any of the Falmouth Cultural Council through our new website, the falmouthculturalcouncil.org, and we will go to each of the 9 precincts with some artists and some recipients of past grants, and we'll just make a very brief presentation, not as long as our conversation, and be available for any questions, because I think it's time to say this new approach of having town money is appropriate. And because of the, well, I make the analogy like the Public Works project under Roosevelt, it had artists and writers as well.
Yes.
And this is like
and
that.
Their work is still available to us. It has been, yes, it's bringing art to everyday life.
Yes, and just, it's part of the infrastructure. It's a different sort of bridge.
Yes, that makes very good sense. Thank you very much for being here and telling us about this, and thank you very much for being chair of such an important organization that really enhances the lives of all of us in Falmouth. So thank you.
And thank you so much for having me.
Right. And thank you, viewers, for joining in. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with Barbara. Right. Oh, gosh.